The iPhone 17e may be a subtle upgrade, but it's a slight change that makes all the difference. Now with MagSafe, this budget smartphone doesn't offer much in the way of compromises. Starting storage capacity is doubled, making even the base model an exceptional choice. The blistering fast A19 chip is even faster than its predecessor. Although the lack of a dynamic island makes the phone feel older than it really is, unless you really care about photography or having the biggest screen, there's not a lot missing here. It's just as gorgeous as before and still highly practical. The physical design is largely unchanged from the iPhone 16e, which is great because the iPhone 16e is one of the most beautiful iPhones ever made. We're so used to the iconic camera plateau that we forget it's actually really ugly. The 17e is so perfect and unadorned, a callback to when the iPhone was an object you could fall in love with. The textured back is grippy. I can confidently hold it in one hand. It's not so top-heavy that I feel like it's going to tumble out of my hands if I'm not careful. The corners are a little sharp though. I like the rounded corners of the recent Pro phones more. The iPhone 17e is virtually the same weight as the 16e, and the dimensions are exactly the same. Both are so much lighter than the 17 Pro that the 17e feels like a breath of fresh air. Speaking of which, I had similar feelings about the iPhone Air. The Air's weight made it a joy to hold in the hand. While the 17e is just as thick as a regular phone, it's not as wide as the Air. It now comes in a color. Soft pink joins white and black. It's more soft than it is pink. In just the right lighting conditions, it looks pink. In most others, it looks like a single red sock got mixed in with the white shirts. There was one big problem with the iPhone 16e, the lack of MagSafe. Now there's no caveat, no hesitation. Go and buy or recommend somebody a 17e and you don't need to worry. It's fully compatible with the MagSafe charging stands on my nightstand and my desk, the MagSafe grip from OSnap, the Apple MagSafe wallet, and the wide variety of MagSafe accessories. I realized as I was setting up my iPhone 17e that I instinctively put it on my desk's MagSafe charging stand without even thinking about it. It doesn't support the same charging speeds. The iPhone 17 Pro supports 25-watt charging. The 17e only supports the older 15-watt standard. But then again, the vast majority of MagSafe accessories, and especially MagSafe-compatible accessories, are only 15 watts anyway, so you're not missing out on much. And MagSafe is all about powering your phone passively while it's on your desk at work or charging overnight while you sleep, so the fastest charging speed isn't even that important. The simple addition of MagSafe to the 17e makes its omission from the 16e all the more confusing. Why wasn't it there to begin with? I was always skeptical of the arguments that the components would cost too much when third-party MagSafe stickers are so cheap, or that it couldn't fit in the design when the iPhone Air is 27% thinner and has it as well. Annoying us all in the tech blogging world is that now and forevermore, anytime we talk about MagSafe, we'll have to say, available on the iPhone 12 and later, except the iPhone 16e. Another sadness from the iPhone 16e was the lack of a dynamic island. Keeping an eye on background tasks on your phone is one of those things that makes it feel like a real computer. And the new iPhone 17e doesn't have it. It has the same notch as before, like some kind of static peninsula. It's crazy how much of a difference this makes. The notch and the slightly bigger bezels around the edge make it feel several years old compared to my 16 Pro. The display is probably one of the iPhone's most expensive components, so it's understandable. You don't cut $200 off the sticker price from the ultra-wide camera and vibes alone. Maybe next year. The display doesn't get quite as bright outdoors as the other 17 models, which you might notice on peak summer days with clear skies wearing your sunglasses. But indoors, in Ohio, in March, the 1200 nit screen is plenty bright. The single rear camera is still a surprisingly effective shooter. It carries over the same hardware from last year, but with some of the image processing improvements found on the other 17 models. I mean, It's an iPhone camera. You've seen the pictures it takes before. It's simultaneously nothing remarkable or novel, but also absolutely freaking incredible that we all just carry this photographic power with us everywhere we go in our pockets on the cheapest iPhone Apple makes. I stared at all the pictures I took, trying to conjure up any sort of feeling, thought, or insight, but all I got was, yep, that's a bunch of iPhone pictures. You could be cynical about it and complain that nothing is new anymore, but we've hit the limits of smartphone camera physics a few years ago. Now even a budget smartphone can take a lot of the same shots as the other latest models, just with one lens instead of 3. The 48 megapixel sensor gives you up to 2x zoom at a full 12 megapixels of resolution, but the resulting images are much smudgier when you zoom in. You also don't get the incredible 5x optical lens from the 16 Pro. Over the last 2.5 years I've spent with it, I've taken a substantial number of those telephoto shots. You also don't have the 0.5x camera. The closest I come to using the macro lens in typical usage is when I'm trying to take a regular 1x photo, but I get a little too close and it switches to the macro lens automatically, so then I have to tap the little flower button to turn it off, and I hold my phone a little farther away. The 17E saves me from that whole ritual. It lets you get a little closer with its lens before it can't focus anymore, because it doesn't have another lens to switch to. It now features next generation portraits. You can take a regular photo and convert it to portrait mode after the fact, and even change which part of the image is in focus. It's really fun to mess with on some of your favorite shots. Oddly though, the 17E doesn't have next generation photographic styles, which let you recolor and transform a photo after the fact. It's like you can go back and take the same shot again using a different film stock with different properties. New photographic styles are available on the iPhone Air, which has very similar single camera hardware. I find its loss to be a major disappointment. I don't use the feature all the time, but I really like using it when I have the opportunity. The 17E uses the old system. You choose in settings whether you want to process your photos with a little more saturation, warmth, or coolth. It's much less versatile, and the choice is permanently baked into all of the photos you take. The 17E also lacks a camera control button on the right side. I use it to quickly summon the camera all the time. I really miss having it there. On my 16 Pro, I've already assigned the action button to run a custom shortcut, replaced the camera icon on the lock screen with an Apple TV remote button, and turned off the swipe gesture to open the camera, because I know that at any time I can just click the camera control to bring it up. On the 17E, I intended to re-enable the lock screen swipe gesture, accepting the risk that it might accidentally be activated in my pocket again, but I was a bit lazy about it. Instead, I just unlocked the phone and went to the app library and opened the camera that way. Apple is slowly walking back the complicated swipe and pressure sensitivity gestures. I wouldn't be surprised if the future iPhone 18 or 19 just has a plain old clicking button. And whenever that change happens, I bet the corresponding 18E or 19E will get it too. The entry-level model now comes with 256 gigabytes of storage, up from 128, and the upgrade to 512 now costs $100 less. It's a very pleasant surprise. Again, there's nothing you need to avoid when buying this phone. The 17E has the latest A19 chip. It's slightly binned with one fewer GPU core, which will probably lead to slightly worse gaming performance, but I doubt it's anything you'd notice. The 17E has the same C1X modem as the iPhone Air. It supposedly doubles regular 5G cellular speeds. It still doesn't support 5G millimeter wave, the elusive high-performance turbo 5G mode that I still don't think I've ever experienced. The N1 Wi-Fi and Bluetooth chip continues to spread across all of Apple's models. Now, I have one single cheap Wi-Fi router provided by my ISP that sits in my office at the edge of my house. My iPhone 16 Pro usually struggles to get a good connection in my bedroom, but the iPhone 17E handles it without a hitch. Ceramic Shield 2 claims to be 3 times as shatter resistant. I wasn't too keen on testing this myself. The 17E also comes with a number of odd missing features compared to the other models. It doesn't have an 18 megapixel center stage front camera. Understandable, as that's a brand new hardware feature. It doesn't support dual capture, which can simultaneously record video on the front and rear cameras. It can't record videos in cinematic mode, nor action mode. Other models have a second-generation ultra-wideband chip for precision finding AirTags and other devices, nor does it have a thread radio for communicating with smart home accessories. Again, none of these features are essentials. The 17E trims a lot of fat from the feature set. It has the most important 90% of features. It's a good phone to buy for a kid as their first iPhone, or to force on somebody else who, left to their own devices, would make do with a BlackBerry from 2009 with a cracked screen they picked out of the trash. It's not an exciting phone, but it's a good phone. I'm Griffin Jones with Cult of Mac.